There's a reason Andy Grove's high output management is basically the Bible for managers in Silicon Valley. It's just a totally no-nonsense, incredibly practical guide to the craft of management. So today, we're going to distill his timeless wisdom into a playbook you can start using right away. Let's dive in and see how thinking like an engineer can make you a way better manager.
Right off the bat, Grove does not pull any punches. He starts by just admitting that the modern business world, with all its global competition and information overload, is just fundamentally tougher than it used to be. Every single one of us is now competing with pretty much everyone, everywhere who can do the same job.
The stakes really couldn't be any higher. This isn't just about trying to get a promotion anymore. It's about pure survival. For Grove, this brutal new reality means that every single manager has to completely rethink their role and how they create value. It's not optional, it's essential. Okay, so how do you adapt? Grove gives us this incredibly powerful mental model. I want you to forget what you think you know about management. From now on, your job, I don't care if you're in marketing, engineering, or HR, your job is a factory.
This right here, this is probably the single most important sentence in the entire book. It completely reframes your whole purpose. See, your success isn't measured by how busy you are, or how many emails you send, or all the meetings you go to. No, it's measured by the results your team produces, period. That's it.
So how do you actually run your job like a factory? Grove uses this brilliant, super simple analogy. Imagine you're making a breakfast of a boiled egg, toast, and coffee. This makes some really complex production ideas incredibly easy to get your head around. Let's check it out.
All right, 3 steps. First, you find the bottleneck. For breakfast, the egg takes the longest to cook, so everything else has to be timed around that egg. That's your limiting step. Second, you use indicators. Stuff like how many customers are we expecting? Are we low on coffee beans? A customer complaint log, that's a quality indicator. These are your dashboards. And finally, and this is huge, you assure quality at the lowest cost. It is way, way cheaper to spot a bad egg and throw it out before you cook it than after it's already on the plate.
Okay, so if your job is a factory and your output is your team's output, how do you actually get more of it? Well, this brings us to the real core of Grove's system, leverage.
Managerial leverage is your secret weapon. Think of it as the multiplier on your time and your effort. See, high leverage actions are those little things you do that create a huge output from your team. It's the difference between just adding to the work and actually multiplying the results. So Grove says you can boost your team's output in 3 ways. 1, you could just work faster, but we all know that has a pretty clear limit. Or 2, you can increase the leverage of what you're already doing. But the most powerful method, the real game changer, is number 3, to deliberately shift your focus away from low-leverage stuff to high-leverage activities. And what's great about this slide is just how clear the difference is. Training your team? That's super high leverage, right? A 1-hour session can improve their output for months. A really well-prepared performance review can redirect an employee's entire focus for a whole year. On the other side, you've got low leverage or even negative leverage. Showing up unprepared to a meeting doesn't just waste your hour, it wastes an hour for every single person in that room. Meddling in a task your team can handle just turns you into a roadblock. The goal is to be ruthless, just eliminate everything in that right column to make more room for what's on the left.
So, how do we apply all these factory principles to actual people? Well, that brings us to the human side of things, coaching for performance. Grove gives us a framework that answers one of the most classic management questions out there. Should you be right there in the weeds with your team, or should you step back and trust them to get it done? The typical answer is always, well, it depends. But Grove gives us a precise way to know what it depends on.
And this table right here is the answer. It all depends on an employee's task-relevant maturity, or TRM. And notice it's task-relevant, not person-relevant. You could have a senior veteran on your team, but if they're starting a totally new kind of project, their TRM for that specific task is low. In that case, you need to be super hands-on. Tell them what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. As they get more experience, you shift into a coaching role. And once they're an expert, you just set the goals, monitor their progress, and get out of the way.
So here's the crucial point. Your job isn't just to match your management style to their current TRM. Your ultimate goal is to actively increase the TRM of every single person on your team. You are a coach. Your mission is to make your players better, more capable, more autonomous. And that is the highest leverage activity of all.
Grove's final insight is maybe his most powerful. He says, these principles don't just apply to your team, they apply to you. He argues that you're not an employee, You are the CEO of a one-person business called You Incorporated. And in a world that's always changing, you, and only you, are responsible for your own competitiveness.
So to wrap this up, Grove leaves us with 3 tough questions we have to constantly ask ourselves. First, are you actually adding value? Think about all the information that flows through you. Are you a critical node that clarifies things, synthesizes ideas, and actually makes things better? Or are you just a router, forwarding emails and passing messages along? Real value comes from enhancement, not just transmission.
The second question is about awareness. Are you actively seeking out information about what's going on, both inside your company and in the wider industry? Or are you just sitting back, waiting for your boss to tell you what's important? Because in this new, less predictable world, being isolated is just a recipe for becoming obsolete.
And finally, are you personally experimenting and growing? Are you playing around with new tools, reading up on new techniques, and actively challenging your own assumptions? Or are you just waiting for change to be forced on you? Because in the end, Grove's message is a cycle. To increase your team's output, you have to increase your own leverage. And the highest leverage activity of all is your own continuous adaptation. In this environment, you have to be the first one to adapt, not just to survive, but to lead.